The warning, the emergency beacon, pierced through subspace like a scream in the void. Commander Tal sat in the observation deck of the Council station, watching the holographic display flicker with urgent red pulses. Each pulse represented a distress signal, and there were now 12 of them blinking across the outer rim sectors. "How many this time?" asked Lieutenant Vex, his scaled hands moving quickly across the control panel. "3 more colonies went dark in the last hour," Tal replied, his voice tight with concern. "That makes 15 in 2 days." The doors to the chamber hissed open. Elder Mora entered, her ancient form moving slowly, but with purpose. Behind her walked Representative Kane of the military fleet and Ambassador Jean from the diplomatic corps. Their faces carried the same expression, fear barely concealed by professional composure. "The Krell?" Kane asked, though everyone already knew the answer. Tal nodded. "Their expansion fleet has crossed into Sector 7. They're moving faster than we predicted." Mora settled into her chair, the weight of her 4 centuries of service evident in every movement. "Show me their trajectory." The holographic map expanded, filling the center of the room with a 3-dimensional representation of the galaxy's outer rim. A red line traced the Krell's path of conquest over the past 2 centuries. 47 star systems, each one absorbed into their growing empire with ruthless efficiency. But it was the direction of that red line that made everyone in the room fall silent. "They're heading straight for it." Jeanne whispered. The map showed a large section of space marked in faded yellow, a color that meant only one thing in galactic navigation: absolute prohibition. The Forbidden Zone. 200 star systems that had been declared off-limits for 10,000 years. No mining, no colonization, no exploration. The oldest law in the galaxy, enforced by every species without question. Until now. Have we warned them? Kane asked. 7 times, Tal replied. The Krell ignore every transmission. They don't acknowledge our authority or our treaties. Typical of young species, Mora said, her voice carrying the weight of experience. They see the galaxy as theirs to take. They don't understand the rules exist for good reasons. Vex enlarged a portion of the display. The Krell Vanguard entered the Forbidden Zone 4 days ago. They've established mining operations on 3 planets in the outer boundary. Which planets? Mora leaned forward, her eyes suddenly sharp. System designations Gamma 447, Gamma 451, and Gamma 455. Mora's expression changed. Something ancient flickered behind her eyes. Not quite fear, but close to it. Those were core worlds? Core worlds? Jeanne asked. Core to what? Mora stood slowly, moving to the holographic display. She touched the controls with practiced ease, adding another layer of data to the map. Suddenly, the Forbidden Zone was overlaid with new information. Planetary classifications, resource markers, and faded symbols that looked almost like letters, but weren't from any modern language. Core to them, Mora said quietly. To the humans. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. No one spoke for a long moment. Kane broke the silence. That's just a legend. A story to scare junior officers. Is it? Mora turned to face them. I've served on this council for 400 years. My predecessor served for 300 before me. She learned from her predecessor, who learned from hers, going back 100 generations. The story doesn't change, Commander Kane. Humans were real. Even if they were real, Jeanne said carefully, they're gone. 10,000 years is a long time. They didn't die, Mora corrected. They vanished. There's a difference. She manipulated the display again, zooming in on one of the planets the Krell had occupied. Humans were the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to colonize other star systems. They spread across this entire sector in less than 1,000 years. They were brilliant adaptable, and terrifyingly effective at war. Why did they fight? Vex asked. They fought everyone, Mora replied. Not because they wanted to conquer, but because every species they encountered either feared them or tried to destroy them first. Humans won every conflict. Every single one. They didn't just defeat their enemies. They erased them so completely that we only know about these wars from human records. Tal felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to them? No one knows. 10,000 years ago, at the height of their power, every human simply disappeared. Not gradually overnight. One day, 200 worlds filled with billions of humans. The next day, empty. Their ships remained in orbit. Their cities stood intact. But not a single human could be found. Maybe they destroyed themselves, Kane suggested. Internal war. Mora shook her head. We've studied their worlds. No signs of conflict, no weapons discharge, no damage at all. They just left, or went somewhere we couldn't follow. The holographic display updated with new data. Tal's console chimed urgently. We're receiving a transmission, he announced. It's from the Krell mining operation on Gamma 455. Put it through, Mora commanded. The voice that came through was distorted by interference, but the panic in it was unmistakable. This is Site Commander Drek of the Krell Extraction Force. We've found something. An underground structure, massive in scale. We're investigating now, but static burst through the speakers. When the voice returned, it was breathless. There are chambers here, thousands of them, filled with some kind of preservation fluid. We're opening one to wait. There's something inside. It's moving. The transmission cut to silence. Tal tried to re-establish the connection, his hands moving frantically across the controls. I've lost the signal completely. Not just communication, their entire facility just went dark. Life signs? Jun asked, scanning now. Vex worked his console. His face went pale. 200 Krell signatures were at that location. Now I'm reading 247 life signs. That's impossible, Kane said. Where did the extra signatures come from? Mora stared at the display, her ancient eyes reflecting the glow of the holograms. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. They're waking up. Before anyone could respond, every console in the observation deck erupted with alarms. The holographic display flashed red as new data flooded in. More facilities are activating, Tal reported, his voice rising with each word. Across all 3 planets, power signatures are spiking. Defensive systems coming online. I'm reading this can't be right. I'm reading thousands of new life signs appearing across Gamma 455. The main display shifted, showing a real-time feed from a Council observation probe near the Forbidden Zone. They watched as lights began appearing across the dark surface of Gamma 455, spreading like fire across a dry field. Within seconds, the entire planet was illuminated. Then the other 2 planets began to glow. Send a priority alert to the Krell High Command, Mora ordered. Tell them to evacuate immediately. They won't listen, Kane said. Then tell them this. The humans are home, and they're not going to be happy about uninvited guests. On the display, something was rising from the surface of Gamma 455. A ship, ancient in design but humming with power that made their sensors scream. Then another ship emerged, and another got within 10 minutes. The sky above all 3 planets was filled with vessels that hadn't flown in 10,000 years. Tal's console chimed one final time. An incoming transmission, broadcasting on all frequencies. The language was archaic, barely recognizable through translation protocols. But the message was clear enough. This is human territory. You have entered our space without permission. You have 30 hours to withdraw all forces. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. The observation deck fell into absolute silence. Elder Mora sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 400 years. "May the stars have mercy on us all," she whispered. "The sleepers have awakened." The reckoning, the Krell mining facility on Gamma 455, had transformed from a scene of industrial efficiency to absolute chaos in less than 10 minutes. Site Commander Drek crouched behind an overturned cargo container, his weapon trained on the corridor ahead. Watching something that shouldn't exist, the human moved like liquid metal, flowing from one position to another with impossible speed. It had disarmed 3 of his best soldiers before any of them could fire a shot. Now those soldiers lay unconscious on the floor, stripped of their weapons and equipment with surgical precision. "Hold your fire," Drek commanded into his cum unit. "We need it alive for study." The human stopped moving. It turned its head, fixing Drek with eyes that seemed to look straight through him. When it spoke, the words came out in fragments of ancient language mixed with modern galactic common, as if it was learning in real time. "Study? Why you trespass? You wake us. You threaten. And you speak of ... study?" The human raised one hand. Nothing visible happened, but every electronic device in the corridor suddenly died. Lights, weapons, communication systems all went dark simultaneously. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. "How did you do that?" Drek demanded, his courage failing him. The human tilted its head, an eerily calm gesture. "This facility answers to me. This planet answers to me. You are guests who broke into someone's home." Behind the human, the corridor was filling with others. Dozens of them, all emerging from the awakening chambers. They wore simple gray garments that had somehow survived 10,000 years of storage. Their skin tones varied light browns, darker browns, pale shades, everything in between. But their eyes were all the same, alert, calculating, and cold with controlled anger. One of the newly awakened humans stepped forward, a woman with dark hair and sharp features. She spoke rapidly to the first human in their ancient language. He responded in kind, gesturing at the Krell soldiers. The woman approached Drek directly. When she spoke, her galactic common was already better than the first human's, as if she was learning with each passing second. "I am Commander Rita of the Human Defense Initiative. You have exactly 1 minute to explain why we shouldn't execute every one of you for invasion of sovereign territory." "Sovereign?" Drek found his voice, though it shook. "This sector has been abandoned for 10,000 years. You have no claim here." Rita's expression didn't change. "So if I leave my home for a journey and return to find strangers living there, the strangers own my home now? Interesting legal theory." She moved to a wall panel and pressed her palm against it. The ancient metal came alive under her touch, holographic displays erupting into the air. Data streamed past too quickly for Drek to read, but Rita absorbed it all without effort. "You've been here 4 days," she said, her voice flat. "You've begun mining operations on 17 sites. You've extracted 47 tons of rare minerals. You've established a communications relay linking this planet to your fleet." She turned to face him. "And you've opened 3 of our awakening facilities without authorization." "We didn't know anyone was in them," Drek protested. "You didn't care," Rita corrected. "Your mission logs are very clear. Extract resources, establish control, ignore local warnings. Standard Krell expansion protocol. How can you access our mission logs?" Rita smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Commander Drek, your technology is 10,000 years newer than ours. But you're still using basic quantum encryption and simple firewall protocols. To us, your systems might as well be written on paper and left lying around." She manipulated the holographic display again. I'm accessing your fleet communications now. Let me speak with whoever is in command. You can't. Already done. The display shifted, showing the bridge of a Krell warship. Admiral Zor sat in the command chair, his expression shifting from irritation to shock as he saw Rita's image. Who are you? Zor demanded. How did you breach our secure channels? I am Commander Rita, Human Defense Initiative. You have vessels in orbit around 3 human worlds. You have 30 hours to withdraw all forces from this sector. Zor's shock transformed into rage. You dare threaten the Krell Empire? We have 30 warships in this system. What do you have? A few dozen primitives crawling out of storage? Rita's expression remained calm. Admiral, I strongly suggest you reconsider your position. I've reconsidered. I'm adding 15 more warships to this system. If you're not off that planet in 6 hours, we'll bombard it from orbit until nothing remains. I see. Rita closed the connection. She turned to the other awakened humans, speaking rapidly in their language. They dispersed quickly, moving with purpose through the facility. Within minutes, Drek could hear machinery coming to life throughout the structure, sounds that hadn't existed in 10 millennia, suddenly filling the air. What are you doing? Drek asked. Rita looked at him with something that might have been pity. Giving your admiral exactly what he asked for. 6 hours later, Admiral Zor sat on his bridge, watching the planet below with satisfaction. The humans had not surrendered. They had not even responded to his follow-up threats. That was fine. The Krell Empire did not tolerate defiance. All ships report ready for orbital bombardment, his weapons officer announced. Target the largest human facility, Zor commanded. Let's make our point clear. Admiral, the sensor officer interrupted, his voice uncertain. I'm detecting unusual power readings from the surface. Ignore them. Some kind of ancient machinery failing. Fire weapons. 5 of his warships unleashed their main cannons simultaneously. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down toward the planet's surface. Enough destructive force to level a mountain dot. The beams never reached the ground. A shimmering barrier appeared in the atmosphere, invisible until the moment of impact. The weapon's fire struck it and simply ... disappeared. Not reflected, not absorbed. Erased. What in the void was that? Zor shouted ... His answer came in the form of light. From 17 locations across the planet's surface, beams of pure white energy erupted upward. They moved too fast for the eye to track, too fast for sensors to provide warning. 5 Krell warships simply ceased to exist. One moment, they were solid vessels filled with crew and weapons. The next moment, there was only empty space and expanding clouds of dissociated atoms. The bridge of Zor's flagship fell into shocked silence. Evasive maneuvers. Zor screamed. All ships scatter formation. More beams lanced up from the surface. They bent through space in ways that made no sense, following the fleeing Krell ships as if the vessels were standing still. 3 more ships vanished. Then 2 more. Return fire. Everything we have. The remaining Krell ships unleashed their full arsenal. Missiles, energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, everything. The planetary defense barrier caught them all, erasing each attack the moment it made contact. Rita's voice suddenly filled every speaker on every Krell ship. Admiral Zor, this is your final warning. Withdraw now, or none of you will leave this system. You're bluffing, Zor spat, though his hands shook on his command chair. This is some kind of automated defense. You can't have full control. Shall I demonstrate? Rita asked calmly. Zor's flagship lurched violently. Every system went dark for 3 seconds life support, weapons, engines, everything. When power returned, a new display had appeared on every screen, showing a schematic of his ship with 17 critical systems highlighted in red. Those are your reactor containment systems, your fuel storage, your ammunition magazines, and your life support core, Rita explained. I'm currently accessing all of them remotely. Would you like me to disable one? Or perhaps all 17 simultaneously? Zor stared at the display in horror. That's impossible. Our systems are completely isolated. To you, perhaps. To us, your security is barely worth the name. Rita's voice hardened. You have 3 minutes to begin your withdrawal. For every minute you delay, I'll disable one of your ships permanently. Not destroy, disable. You'll be left drifting in space, waiting for rescue that may not come. Zor looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him, waiting for orders. Through the view screen, he could see more lights activating across the planet below. Hundreds of them now, maybe thousands, spreading like stars igniting across the darkness. This isn't over, Zor growled. The Krell High Command will send our entire armada. 300 ships. You can't stand against that. Then send them, Rita replied. We'll be ready. Zor cut the connection and turned to his communications officer. Send an immediate priority message to High Command. Tell them we need the full fleet. Tell them, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them the humans are back. He gave the order to withdraw, and his remaining ships began retreating from orbit. As they did, he watched the planet's surface through his scanners. The power readings were still climbing. More facilities coming online. More ancient weapons waking from their long sleep. On the bridge of every surviving Krell ship, the same thought ran through every crew member's mind. They had made a terrible mistake. The message from Admiral Zor reached Krell High Command within hours. The response was predictable and immediate. The Krell did not retreat. The Krell did not show weakness. The Krell certainly did not bow to threats from a species that hadn't existed for 10,000 years. Supreme Commander Vex, leader of the Krell military, stood before the High Council and declared his intention personally. We will deploy our entire armada. 300 warships, 2 million soldiers, and enough firepower to sterilize those planets if necessary. The humans will learn what it means to challenge the Krell Empire. The High Council approved the deployment unanimously. The armada began gathering in the staging systems. An assembly of military might unprecedented in modern galactic history. It would take them 8 days to fully assemble and make the jump to the human sector. Rita watched their preparations through the ancient human surveillance network, systems that had been observing the galaxy in silence for 10,000 years. She stood in the primary command center of what had once been called Earth Base Gamma 455, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from across all 3 awakened worlds. They're sending everything they have, said Commander James, who had awakened from the facility next to hers. 300 ships. Are we ready for that? Rita nodded slowly. The question isn't whether we're ready. The question is whether they understand what they're really facing. She manipulated a display, showing a map of all 200 human worlds across the Forbidden Zone. On 3 of those worlds, lights were burning. On the others, darkness remained. Send the activation signal, Rita commanded. Wake them all. James hesitated. All of them? Rita, that's billions of people. The galaxy isn't ready for that. The galaxy should have left our worlds alone. Rita's voice carried no doubt. Send the signal. James input the command. Across the Forbidden Zone, on 197 still dark worlds, ancient systems began receiving a simple message. 4 words in the oldest human language. The watch is over. On planet after planet, awakening facilities came to life. Power surged through systems that had slept for 100 centuries. Lights began to glow in empty cities. Defense networks activated. Ships that had been built when the galaxy was young started humming with renewed purpose. And in thousands of facilities across 200 worlds. Preservation chambers began draining their fluid, releasing the humans who had chosen to sleep until they were needed again. Rita watched the activation map update in real time, each world lighting up like a candle being lit in the darkness. Within 48 hours, all 200 worlds showed active status. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Rita ordered. "Not a threat, an invitation. Tell them humanity wishes to discuss terms for our return." "And if they refuse?" James asked. Rita's expression hardened. "Then they'll learn what happened to everyone who refused us before." She pulled up another display, this one showing the approaching Krell armada. 300 ships advancing in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. "And the Krell?" James asked. "The Krell will be our message," Rita said quietly. "Sometimes the galaxy needs a reminder. Not a story or a legend, but a demonstration. They've forgotten what humans are capable of. We're going to teach them." She turned to face the holographic display, showing the gathering human fleet. Already, ships were launching from the 3 awakened worlds. Not ancient relics, but vessels that looked as if they'd been built yesterday. Their systems maintained perfectly by automated facilities that had never stopped working. "The Krell think they're bringing an armada," Rita said. "Let them come. Let them see what real power looks like. And let them carry the message back to the rest of the galaxy." She brought up a final display, showing something that made even James draw in a sharp breath. Deep scan data from beyond the Forbidden Zone, in the dark space between galaxies. Ships were detected there too. Hundreds of them. Thousands. A fleet that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. "What is that?" James whispered. "Our cousins," Rita replied. "The ones who didn't sleep. The ones who left the galaxy entirely. They've been exploring the dark space for 10,000 years. Building, learning, growing." She smiled. "And now they've heard we're awake. They're coming home, too." The display showed estimated arrival time for the distant fleet, 17 days. "The Krell armada will arrive in 8 days," Rita said. "That gives us plenty of time to handle them before reinforcements arrive. But after that?" She gestured at the massive fleet approaching from the darkness beyond. "After that, the galaxy is going to have to decide how it wants to deal with humanity. As friends, as neutral parties, or as enemies." She turned off the displays and headed for the door. "Prepare the fleet. Make sure every ship is ready. And James? When the Krell arrive, I want them to understand this perfectly clearly. We're not the species that ran away 10,000 years ago. We're what humanity became while we slept. And we're done hiding." The door closed behind her, leaving James alone with the holographic displays. On one screen, the Krell armada continued its approach, confident and unstoppable. On another screen, 200 human worlds glowed with awakened power. And on a third screen, the distant fleet of humans who had left the galaxy entirely drew ever closer, bringing with them 10,000 years of knowledge and technology developed in the infinite. Darkness beyond the stars. The reckoning was coming. And the galaxy had no idea what it was about to face. Asterisk, the new order the Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every major species crowded the observation galleries, while diplomats filled every available seat on the main floor. The air hummed with a dozen different languages as translation systems struggled to keep pace with the urgent conversations. Elder Mora stood at the central podium, her hands raised for silence. It took several minutes before the chamber quieted enough for her to speak. 8 days ago, the Krell Empire invaded 3 worlds in the Forbidden Zone. 7 days ago, those worlds came alive. 6 days ago, all 200 worlds in that sector activated simultaneously. Today, we face a crisis unlike any in recorded history. Humanity has returned. A wave of noise swept through the chamber. Fear, excitement, disbelief, all mixing together in a chaotic storm of reaction. The Krell Armada will reach human space in 4 hours, Mora continued. They are proceeding with full military deployment, despite our warnings. But before that confrontation occurs, humanity has sent us a representative. She has requested permission to address this council. Absolutely not, Representative Braun of the Ocean Collective stood, his voice booming. We don't negotiate with ghosts and legends. Let the Krell handle this militarily. If these so-called humans are real, let them prove it in battle. They've already proven it, Mora replied coldly. They destroyed 8 Krell warships in 17 minutes. They accessed and compromised Krell computer systems that were supposed to be impenetrable. And they've activated a defensive network across 200 worlds at our best. Analysts say shouldn't be possible with current technology. Then they're even more dangerous than the legend suggested. Braun shot back. We should support the Krell. Overwhelming force before these humans can establish a foothold. Or, a new voice echoed through the chamber. You could listen to what we have to say before you start a war you cannot win. Every head turned toward the entrance. A woman walked into the chamber alone, wearing a simple gray uniform that looked both ancient and strangely modern. Her hair was dark, her skin a light brown, and her eyes scanned the assembled council with calm assessment. She moved with quiet confidence, unbothered by the hundreds of eyes fixed upon her. I am Commander Ritta, Human Defense Initiative, she said, her voice carrying easily across the vast space. I speak for the awakened. How did you get in here? Demanded Guard Captain Tor, his hand moving to his weapon. This station is supposed to be secure. Ritta glanced at him. Your security is adequate for normal circumstances. But your systems are young, Captain. We've been designing network architectures since before most of your species discovered fire. I walked through your checkpoints because I chose to let your scanners see me. She reached the central speaking platform without being stopped. The council guards looked to Mora, uncertain whether to intervene. Let her speak, Mora said quietly. Ritta stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. 10,000 years ago, humanity controlled this region of space. We were the first to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to establish interstellar colonies, the first to make contact with other intelligent species. She paused, and the first to realize we were becoming something the galaxy couldn't coexist with. What do you mean? Asked Ambassador Jun, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. We were too successful, Ritta replied. Every species we encountered either attacked us out of fear or sought to use us for protection. Every conflict ended in human victory. Every negotiation ended with others treating us as either threats or saviors. We couldn't have equals, only subjects or enemies. She brought up a holographic display without touching any controls, simply manipulating the council's systems through what appeared to be thought alone. Images appeared in the air. Human cities, human ships, human worlds in their prime. We grew tired of it. Tired of war, tired of isolation, tired of being feared. So we made a choice. We placed ourselves in stasis. We left automated defenses and clear warnings. We hoped that given 10,000 years, the galaxy might mature enough that we could return and find our place among equals rather than beneath us or above us. And now you're back to reclaim what you left. Braun said accusingly. We're back to reclaim what is ours by right, Ritta corrected. 200 worlds that we built, that we maintained, that we protected. Worlds that every species in this galaxy agreed to leave untouched. The Krell violated that agreement. The Krell are a young species, Mora interjected. They weren't part of the original treaty. They don't recognize the authority of this council. That's their problem, not ours, Ritta said flatly. They entered our space. They ignored our warnings. They opened our facilities without permission and threatened us when we objected. Now they're bringing their full military force to try to intimidate us into submission. She changed the holographic display. Now it showed the approaching Krell armada in real time. 300 warships advancing in a massive formation. In approximately 3 hours and 42 minutes, the Krell fleet will enter weapons range of our defensive perimeter. They will demand our surrender. We will decline. They will attack. And then this council will see exactly what human military capability looks like after 10,000 years of preparation. The chamber erupted in noise again. Representatives shouting questions, guards moving nervously, diplomats conferring urgently with their aides. Rita waited for silence, then continued. But before that happens, I want to make humanity's position absolutely clear. We don't want war. We don't want conquest. We don't want to dominate the galaxy. We want our worlds back. We want our sovereignty respected. And we want to establish peaceful coexistence with the species that have arisen in our absence. And if we refuse? Braun challenged. Then you'll join the Krell in learning a very expensive lesson about the difference between modern military capability and what true technological superiority looks like. Rita's tone remained calm, but something in her eyes made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. However, she continued, if this council is willing to negotiate in good faith, humanity is prepared to offer something unprecedented. We're offering technology sharing, defensive pacts, and access to scientific knowledge that could advance your civilizations by centuries. All we ask in return is recognition of human sovereignty over our original territory and a seat at this council as equals. Why would you offer us anything? Ambassador Jun asked. By your own admission, you're more advanced than we are. You don't need our approval. Rita smiled slightly. Because we learned our lesson the first time. Power without partnership creates only resentment and eventual conflict. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it alongside you. But that requires mutual respect. She gestured to the holographic display. The Krell are about to discover what happens when respect is absent. I'm hoping the rest of you are wiser. Before anyone could respond, every display in the council chamber suddenly changed. They were now showing a live feed from the edge of the Forbidden Zone. The Krell Armada had arrived ahead of schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Supreme Commander Vex's face appeared on the main screen, broadcast on all frequencies. To the entities claiming to be human, you have one final opportunity to surrender. Abandon those planets immediately, or we will remove you by force. You have 1 hour to comply. Rita didn't move, didn't react. She simply watched the display with an expression of profound sadness. Commander Rita, Mora said urgently, there's still time to negotiate with them. The Council can intervene. No, Rita interrupted gently. They've made their choice. And sometimes the galaxy needs an object lesson. She touched her wrist, activating what appeared to be a communication device. All human forces, this is Commander Rita. The Krell have rejected peaceful resolution. You are cleared to defend our space. Rules of engagement. Disable their fleet, minimize casualties where possible, but make the demonstration clear. We're not trying to exterminate them. We're teaching them why the Forbidden Zone existed. Acknowledged, came dozens of voices in response. On the display, the Krell Armada began advancing toward the nearest human world. Their weapons systems powered up, their shields activated, their fighters launched in massive swarms. What happened next would be discussed in galactic history texts for the next 1,000 years. The human defensive network activated simultaneously across all 3 worlds in range. But unlike the previous engagement, this wasn't a simple weapons exchange. The space around the Krell fleet began to fold. Ships that were advancing in formation suddenly found themselves separated by thousands of kilometers. Their careful tactics disrupted by space itself, bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. Fighters launched to attack found their targets vanishing, only to reappear in completely different locations. What are they doing? Breathed Ambassador Jean. Manipulating space-time directly, Rita replied calmly. One of many technologies we developed before we slept. Your species understand gravity and relativity. We learned to use them as tools. The Krell fleet attempted to regroup, but human ships were now appearing throughout the battlefield. Not many, perhaps 50 vessels against 300 Krell warships. But each human ship moved with impossible precision, phasing in and out of normal space, appearing exactly where they needed to be and vanishing before weapons could lock onto them. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. Not a single human ship was touched. Not one took damage or showed any sign of stress. They simply moved through the Krell formations like ghosts, disabling engines, disrupting weapon systems, overwhelming shields with technologies that made modern warfare look primitive by comparison. When it was over, 300 Krell warships floated dead in space. Not destroyed, merely disabled. Every weapon offline. Every engine cold. Life support functioning, but nothing else. The entire armada reduced to helpless metal coffins drifting through the void. Supreme, Commander Vex appeared on the displays again, his face pale with shock and rage. This is impossible. Our ships were state-of-the-art. Our weapons, your weapons, are children's toys compared to what we can deploy. Rita interrupted, her voice broadcast to his bridge. Your tactics are predictable. Your technology is adequate for fighting other modern species, but you're not fighting a modern species. You're fighting the civilization that wrote the book on interstellar warfare 10,000 years before your people left their homeworld. She let that sink in, then continued. Your fleet is disabled, but intact. Your crews are alive. In approximately 6 hours, your systems will begin rebooting in sequence. You'll be able to limp home. Consider this mercy, Commander Vex. Consider this education. And consider very carefully whether you want to face us again. Vex's image vanished as his communications were cut remotely. The council chamber remained absolutely silent. Every representative stared at the displays showing the disabled Krell fleet, trying to process what they just witnessed. The galaxy's most aggressive military power. The species that had conquered 47 star systems in 2 centuries had been rendered completely helpless in less than 20 minutes. That was your demonstration, Mora said quietly. What's your offer? Rita turned to face the council fully. Simple terms. Humanity reclaims our 200 worlds. Any species currently occupying those worlds has 30 days to evacuate peacefully. We'll even help with transportation if needed. In exchange, we offer the following. She brought up a new display, listing items clearly. First, defensive pact. Any species attacked by external forces can request human military assistance. We won't conquer for you, but we'll protect you. Second, technology sharing on agreed terms. Medical advances, energy systems, agricultural techniques, things that improve life without creating new weapons. Third, scientific collaboration. We've been asleep for 10,000 years. You've developed things we haven't seen. We'll share knowledge freely with those who share in return. Fourth, access to the Human Exploration Network. We've mapped regions of space you've never reached. We'll open those maps to council members. And what do you want in return? Asked Braun, his earlier hostility tempered by what he'd just witnessed. Recognition of human sovereignty. A seat on this council. And one more thing. Rita paused, choosing her words carefully. We want the right to police our own borders. Anyone entering human space without permission will be turned away. Anyone claiming human worlds will face the same response the Krell just received. Our territory is not negotiable. That's reasonable, Jeanne said immediately, looking around at her fellow council members. More than reasonable, given their capabilities. There's something else, Rita added. Something you should know before you make any decisions. She brought up a new display, showing deep space beyond the galactic rim. The image showed hundreds of contacts approaching from the darkness between galaxies. What is that? Mora asked, though something in her voice suggested she already suspected. The humans who didn't sleep, Rita explained. 10,000 years ago, when we decided to enter stasis, some of us made a different choice. They left the galaxy entirely. They've been exploring the intergalactic void, developing technologies in isolation, building ships and systems using resources you can't even imagine. They're responding to our awakening signal. They'll arrive in approximately 12 days. The chamber erupted in noise again, but this time it was different. This wasn't panic or fear. It was the sound of an entire galactic civilization, realizing that everything had changed. Rita waited for the noise to subside, then continued. Those ships represent another branch of humanity. They've had 10,000 years of uninterrupted development with unlimited resources and no conflicts to distract them. Their technology makes our current systems look primitive. And they're coming home. Are they hostile? Braun asked, his voice tight with concern. They're human, Rita replied, which means they're capable of both great compassion and great destruction. How they interact with the galaxy depends entirely on how the galaxy treats them, and how the galaxy treats us. She leaned forward on the podium. This is humanity's offer. Work with us, and we'll help this galaxy advance beyond anything you've imagined. Fight us, and you'll learn why every species that challenged us 10,000 years ago doesn't exist anymore. The choice is yours. Mora looked around the chamber at her fellow council members. Slowly, carefully, she spoke. I move that we accept humanity's terms. All in favor? The vote was not unanimous. 3 species abstained, afraid to commit. 2 voted against, too proud to surrender their positions in the old order. But the overwhelming majority voted yes. Then it's settled, Mora said. Welcome back, Commander Rita. Welcome back to the galaxy. Rita nodded slowly. Thank you. We'll begin coordination for the evacuation of occupied worlds immediately. And Elder Mora? There's one more thing you should know. What's that? The humans returning from intergalactic space? They're not the only ones coming. They've made contact with species out there. Species that exist in the darkness between galaxies, that never evolved in normal space. Some are friendly. Some are less so. The next few years are going to be very interesting for all of us. She smiled slightly. You wanted humanity to return? Congratulations. But we're bringing the entire universe with us. 3 days later, Rita stood on an observation platform on Gamma 455, looking up at the night sky. The planet's atmosphere had been restored. Its cities were beginning to light up as millions of awakened humans took their first steps in 10,000 years. James joined her, carrying 2 cups of something that approximated coffee. The real thing wouldn't be available until agricultural facilities finished reactivating. The evacuations are going smoothly, he reported. Most species are cooperating. The few that aren't are finding their equipment mysteriously malfunctioning whenever they try to stay. Rita smiled faintly. Good. What about the Krell? Their fleet made it home. Supreme Commander Vex has been removed from command. The new Krell leadership has sent formal apologies and requested a meeting to discuss peaceful relations. Smart of them. The Council is still processing everything. Half of them are terrified of us. The other half want to be our best friends. Both reactions are understandable, Rita said. She sipped her drink and grimaced. This is terrible. It's been 10,000 years. Give our agricultural systems time to remember how to grow proper coffee beans. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the orbital stations above. Human ships moving with purpose, beginning the massive task of reclaiming and rebuilding 200 worlds. Do you think we did the right thing? James asked quietly. Going to sleep, I mean. Maybe if we'd stayed, the galaxy would be more advanced by now. Rita considered the question. Maybe. Or maybe we would have stunted their growth by being here. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is step back and let them develop on their own. She paused. The real question is whether we've changed enough. Whether we can coexist now instead of dominate. And have we? We're about to find out. A communication alert chimed on Rita's wrist device. She activated it, and a holographic face appeared, another human, but one she didn't recognize. Their uniform was different, more advanced, with subtle designs that seemed to shift and move. Commander Rita? I'm Captain Nash of the Exploration Fleet. We're approximately 8 days out from galactic re-entry. We wanted to give you advance notice of our arrival coordinates and discuss integration protocols. Good to hear from you, Captain. We're ready to coordinate. What's your fleet composition? Nash smiled. We're bringing home approximately 2,000 ships, 5 million personnel, and substantial technology we've developed during our time in the dark. We've also made contact with 17 distinct non-galactic species. 3 of them are interested in diplomatic relations with galactic civilization. The others prefer to remain in the void. Understood? We'll prepare appropriate facilities. Captain, I have to ask, what was it like out there? Nash's smile faded slightly. Lonely, magnificent, terrifying, beautiful. The galaxy is vast, Commander, but it's just a small island in an ocean of darkness. There are things out there that make our achievements look insignificant. Ancient civilizations that died out before our sun was born. Entities that exist in ways we're still trying to understand. And yes, dangers. Serious dangers. Part of why we're returning is to warn the galaxy about what's coming. Rita felt a chill run down her spine. What's coming? There are predatory species in the void. They move between galaxies, consuming everything they find. They wiped out 3 civilizations we discovered, or rather, we found the ruins. The predators are slow, moving on timescales measured in millions of years. But they're thorough. Nash's expression hardened. One of their scout groups is heading in this direction. They won't arrive for approximately 50,000 years. But when they do, the galaxy will need to be ready. 50,000 years, Ritter repeated. That's a long time to prepare. It's also a very short time if you're not taking the threat seriously. That's one reason we're coming back. We need to help the galaxy unite and advance. Not for conquest or control, but for survival. Rita nodded slowly. Then we have work to do. Welcome home, Captain. We'll see you in 8 days. The connection closed. James stared at her, his face pale. Predatory species? Things that destroy entire civilizations? Apparently, Rita said quietly. Should we tell the Council? Not yet. Let them adjust to our return first. We'll introduce the concept of external threats gradually. Right now, they're still processing the fact that humanity exists. Give them time to accept us as allies before we tell them about the monsters in the dark. She finished her terrible coffee and set the cup aside. But James? Make sure our defensive networks are fully operational within the next year. All 200 worlds, maximum readiness. If we're going to protect this galaxy, we need to be ready for anything. Understood? They stood together, watching the stars. Somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, human explorers were returning home after 10 millennia of isolation. Behind them, They brought warnings of threats the galaxy had never imagined. And here, in the gallery, humanity's awakened defenders prepared to take their place as both protectors and partners in a civilization that had grown in their absence. The species that defied galaxy had returned. They had brought with them 10,000 years of advancement, knowledge from beyond the stars, and warnings of dangers yet to come. But they had also brought something more important, a second chance. A chance to be something other than conquerors or isolationists. A chance to find their place among the stars, not above or below others, but alongside them. Whether that chance would succeed or fail would depend on choices made in the days ahead. By humans who had learned from their past. By other species willing to embrace change. And by a galaxy facing threats that required unity instead of division. Rita looked up at the night sky, at the billions of stars scattered across the darkness, and allowed herself a moment of hope. Humanity was home. And this time, they would do better. Commander? James's voice broke her reflection. The Council is requesting another meeting. They want to discuss long-term integration plans. Tell them I'll be there in an hour. Rita took one last look at the stars. And James? Start drafting proposals for joint defense initiatives. If the Council is ready to work with us, let's give them something worth working toward. Joint defense against what? Rita smiled slightly. Against everything. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than anyone here understands. But together? Together, we might actually have a chance. She turned away from the observation platform and headed inside, back to the work of rebuilding civilization. Behind her, the night sky blazed with stars, each one representing worlds, species, opportunities, and threats. The species that defied the galaxy had awakened. The lost humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end asterisk.